Justin Dillon is the founder of Slavery Footprint. Justin, welcome to TechCrunch TV.
It's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
Justin, you have a very serious message about the way in which slavery still has a central role in the contemporary world. Very briefly, tell me what Slavery Footprint is and what you've discovered.
Slavery Footprint is a way to address the issue of modern-day slavery here in not just in the United States, but around the world. There are 27 million people living in slavery today. And when we say slavery, we're not saying unfair working conditions. We're talking about full-on slave labor. 27 million people represents more than were brought across the Atlantic during the 400 years of the transatlantic slave trade. So we're talking about an issue that has scale and doesn't quite have all the solutions that it needs to be able to fight off something that is, for the first time in history, illegal everywhere.
Justin, this is not a political show, this is a technology show. So I'm interested in your view in the digital 21st century where we're increasingly living on the internet, what the role of technology and the internet is in contemporary slavery.
Well, I think the reason that we're seeing this issue emerge now is a product not of just technology, but of globalization. And so if you think of slavery as in terms of supply and demand, the opportunities to acquire human beings for use, whether it's in labor slavery or sexual servitude or even in agricultural work, the idea is that you can now use technology as a way of serving up the supply, so to speak. So you have greater access to slave labor through technology. So I can break it down for you. The idea that particularly in the sex industry, we've seen quite a bit of controversy around the idea of adult ads and how you can, the access through Craigslist and other sites allows you to see that. That's been a debate about how we can reduce the demand for sexual slavery inside of those adult ads using technology.
So is the internet to blame then for contemporary slavery?
No more than globalization is. It's just a vehicle through which slavery is allowed to expand. The good news is we can use both globalization and technology as a way to fight it.
Well, I'm absolutely certain that our entire audience is horrified with slavery. So what can the internet do and what can we do to fight contemporary slavery?
Well, when you break down the numbers, 27 million people in slavery today, about 90% of that is in forced labor. So those are the people that are working on the products that we use and love every day, everything from t-shirts to baby wipes to the technology that we communicate through. So we've created, along with, based on an idea and some funding from the State Department, we created an interface through which people can understand how their consumption affects slavery. And then we've given them a mobile tool that allows them to advocate on behalf of those who are forced to produce their lifestyles. It's all through slaveryfootprint.org. We're also using, you go to slaveryfootprint.org and you can take a survey that's, it's very easy. It's not just spitting out bad news, but basically we've done a year's worth of research to be able to determine how much slavery is in your products. You take an 11-question survey. At the end of it, it's going to tell you empirically how many slaves work for you and where they live in the world. You're then called out to download our mobile app in the Android or iTunes market and take that mobile app out with you, actually checking into places as you buy things. So the idea that we can buy things without slavery right now is a little bit early. We actually need to start leveraging our purchases so that we can get cooperation from large companies to do more about slavery in their supply chains. And through checking in, we're able to send messages not only to the retailers but to the producers. Not handing out torches and pitchforks, but basically being able to say there's a demand for products with greater attention around the supply chains and slavery. And that's what our technology does.
I'm working off an iPad here. Most of our users, most of our viewers have iPads and iPhones and many other sexiest devices. How many of them are dependent on slavery?
Well, based on our research, if you took an average smartphone, we've calculated the average likelihood that there's 3.2 likely forced laborers it takes to make a smartphone. And by the way, we're not picking...
Sorry, what was that?
3.2 forced laborers somewhere in the supply chain to produce your smartphone.
So you mean, so this thing required 3.2...
At least that's an iPad. So there's probably a little bit more inside of an e-reader or an iPad. Absolutely.
That's pretty shocking, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one counter argument to that would be like, well, how many hands and people are really working in the supply chain to produce that? And the truth is there's a lot. But I think 3.2, getting our heads around the actual number of slaves working for you, particularly working in the products that you enjoy, is important because it begins to humanize the story and not just create it into some kind of statistic that's buried at the bottom of a supply chain.
Some people might say, though, that you're just killjoys.
Absolutely not. I'm a storyteller at heart. I've got no reason to try to spit out bad information for people. That's not only not helpful, sometimes it's actually hurtful.
But won't people, isn't it instilling a sense of guilt in people? That how are we supposed to, are you saying that every time we buy anything in the store, we should be on our app figuring out whether any slave labor has gone into it?
Absolutely not. I think that if I haven't solicited people's participation in this movement, then I failed. The idea that I'm trying to tell you how many slaves you own, if that's where it ends, then all I've done is delivered bad news to you and worked very hard, by the way, to do that. Our idea is to move people out into the marketplace. If the marketplace doesn't raise its voice for greater transparency in supply chains, then we failed. And we have to do that empirically, and we have to do that innovatively, and we figured out a way to do that through the app. The app is not a way to figure out which products do or don't have slavery in it. It's a way, it's akin to carbon credits. When you buy something, you take an action with it. So the people who made that product, whether it's an iPad or baby wipes, know that you care about this, and they're going to apply greater standards, which we're working with companies now to be able to find out who is actually recruiting slave labor at the bottom of the supply chains and starting to get those bad recruiters and those bad labor brokers out of the system.
What has been the impact so far from the market on your ideas, both from the point of view of companies and the general public, the consumers?
Well, some companies don't understand, and those are the ones we get cease and desist letters from. But for the most part, most larger brands completely get this. In fact, there's a tremendous amount of corporate compliance around this. The reality is, even with the corporate compliance that we have today, there's still 27 million people.
Are there particular tech companies who have been very open-minded on this, paragons of virtue?
I think all of them have some type of code of conduct for the most part. What we're looking for is greater engagement, and really the way to do that is we need to start seeing greater amounts of third-party auditing to be able to look at supply chains to really make sure.
And have you found that consumers really care? Are you expecting hundreds of thousands or millions of people to download your app?
I am expecting that, absolutely. I don't think consumers care about numbers, they care about people, and that's why we've humanized the process. It's important to understand who you're advocating for, not just advocating for a number, but you're advocating for people. And as a storyteller, what's important for me is that you understand that your story matters. The things that you buy and the relationships with the products you have actually matter, and you can leverage that to help somebody else's story.
Where's your evidence that people care?
We put out a website a few years ago called ChangeStoryAction.com, and it was a letter-writing advocacy campaign that was very even-handed, very fair, but basically asked consumers to connect with the brands that they love and let them know how much they care about this. And we've had over 100,000 individual letters go to companies. And we also had over 170 companies reply back and fill out a survey saying, hey, we're willing to share what we know and possibly even do more. And on top of that, Secretary Clinton got behind the website and said, this is something that's one of the best ways that citizens can engage. So it's a dicey space, but as far as we're concerned, the way activism works around slave labor is more like judo than karate. We have to be able to use the tools that we have in our arsenal, which is globalization and technology, and use those tools against the very thing that's allowing slavery to not only exist in scale.
And just to remind our viewers, the U.S. Department of State is financing and supporting your initiative.
Partially, yes.
How much money have they put in?
Their initial grant was $200,000.
And how else are they encouraging and supporting you?
Well, we work specifically with the Office to Combat and Monitor Human Trafficking, and so it's one of the best public-private partnerships because we're able to do things that they can't do, and they're able to do things that we can't do. We're able to say things and articulate things in a way that government can't. They're also able to open doors, and they brought us, and we were able to launch this thing at Clinton Global Initiative back on September 22nd on the 149th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. We couldn't have done that on our own.
And Justin, if somebody watching wants to get involved with Slavery Footprint, what should they do? Go
to slaveryfootprint.org and start there. You'll be taken through a survey, and it's going to give you a way to understand your story. And then we want you to download the app and get involved. People are doing it all around the world. The first month we had over 100 different countries sign up and get involved. People from 100 different countries sign up and get involved. And really, it's continuing to grow. We're using social media and technology to be able to tell the story and be able to let the data tell the story that we all agree as consumers and producers that we all want to live in a free world.
Well, Justin Dillon, the founder of Slavery Footprint, thank you so much for appearing on TechCrunch TV.
Total honor. Thank you.